All right, so follow me, the tool. We're going to talk about the follow me tool for the next 40 minutes or so, the ins and outs of it, all about. And if you haven't used it, that's great. If you've used it a little bit, hopefully we'll get into some detail that maybe you haven't tried. But the follow me tool is really just, it's two things. Kind of like the basics class where I come in and I'm like, SketchUp is only two things. It's edges and surfaces. That's all SketchUp is. And you break it down to that, and then of course you can have more fun with it than that. But follow me tool is only two things. It's a shape and it's a path. It works like this. You've got a path, and you take this shape and you follow it along the path. And so you can do some pretty interesting things with that. So just a few examples of what you can do with follow me. Yeah, thanks. Louder, louder. Ooh. Ah. Thank you. Pull this around. Do some stairs. Put some detail. Even come up here and follow along a circle. Okay, so these are all things that you can do with the follow me tool. So let's jump in. Let's talk about how you would actually use follow me. Now, I'm gonna do a shameless plug here. For those of you who watch our video tutorials, these are the same examples that we use in those. And since mostly I make video tutorials, hey, right? Video tutorials are pretty cool. You should check them out. You did. All right, so the follow me tool, a couple things to understand about it, is the relationship between your path and your shape and how those are going to work for you. So for example, obviously I've got a little shape of path here. You can see these two shapes, right? They're in a different orientation, not facing the same way. Let's see what happens as we follow them along this railing path. So we'll take this first one, and it acts kind of like we would expect it to, right? The thing you need to understand is the path is going to determine how that shape is oriented. So even though that second shape was skewed at a different angle, because the path, it starts on the path at a perpendicular direction. So it just follows it directly. It's not going to follow it at its skewed angle. Okay, so that's one thing that's good to understand. Regardless, again, if I just undo that, regardless of the orientation of your original shape, it is going to follow the path. Now, obviously, we could take this path and rotate it, and then we get some different results. But again, it's the same behavior in that path is going to determine sort of how it's going to follow. And you see we got that little warning. The path you've chosen does not begin or end. And so it's just saying, okay, so just hammering that down so that we understand that. Now another thing to understand about the relationship between the shape and the path is that, again, the path is determining more how this is going to turn out than necessarily the shape, in that if we do follow me here, oops, let me undo. Okay, that's as expected. But if we take this other circle that's way back here, you see it still starts up here where the path is. Okay, so just understand that relationship, and that what you really want to do, let me come back here. What you really want to do when you're creating these, especially something like a railing and some of these shapes, is set your path and your shape up correctly from the start, so that ideally I would just take this circle and place it right there on my path, so I know it's going to start exactly there. I'm going to get exactly the results that I expect and that I want. And so you'd set it up correctly from the beginning. But now you all understand, what can happen. Now I've just been jumping ahead and creating these follow me's, so let's show you how to actually create them yourself. To start with, and CO follow me tool is you've all surely observed by now. You can click on the shape, just click once, and I clicked twice, sorry. And then you just start moving it along the path. Now, in this way, you see, I can move it over here, I can run it down here, I can run it back, run it over, run it through over here. Any continuous line is a candidate that I can then start working along. So you really can have some fun with this, but in this case, obviously, we're probably just coming back here and click to finish. Just follow me. That is the basic way to use follow me, right? So just once again, real quick, you click on the shape, and then you start just moving along the path, or deciding what path that you want to follow along. Okay. The better way to use follow me, the way that I recommend you use it most of the time, this works for simple things. I'm going to undo this. Is that you pre-select the path. And here's how it works. So I'm going to take the select tool and select this edge, hold the shift key down, select this edge, and that edge. So I have these 4 edges selected that I want to use. Then click on the follow me tool. Word of warning, we're going to lose our selection, or it's going to appear like we've lost our selection as soon as I click on this. See, it goes away. But as soon as I click on that shape, it follows the path that we had selected. In a case like this, it may have been just as easy to follow it manually. However, in this example, I select this one, and this line, and I start to work my way around this corner and around the various corners. When you're trying to follow that shape and orbit around, it gets to be a little bit cumbersome. This is a great example where it is better, as I just find most often it is, that you pre-select the path. So the path is selected, and just to show you, let's see what happens. I'm going to deselect one of these. Okay, so now we have a broken path. Broken path, come back, follow me, and it works along, but not a valid path because obviously it's broken. So just to show you real quick, let's do it the right way. Okay, I've got the correct path selected. Now, click on the tool, or I'm sorry, on the shape, and there we go. Most frequently, that's the method that I prefer. Now, there are a couple other ways, a couple other things that you can do to use it. Think about, and again, this gets back to basics, SketchUp 101, right? This surface only exists because we have a set of bounding edges, right? So if we select that surface for follow me, that says, well, effectively we're selecting its bounding edges as the path. So we can select just this surface instead of going around and saying, well, I want to select all 4 edges. What we can do is just say, I'm selecting that surface, its bounding edges, then go to follow me, and it'll work the same. Any flat shape that you have like that, that's a great quick workaround too, to use follow me. Another way that you can use follow me is to actually start on the path and start pulling it along. Press the Alt key or Apple key on a Mac and just touch on the surface that you want to follow along with. But in truth, I just find I select my path or I select the surface and then just use it. But whatever works best for you, just let you know the various ways that you can do that. Keep in mind as we understand that this gets back to the relationship between the path and the surface. In this case, if we wanted to follow this around this window well, it's, let's say we wanted to follow it, along this back side. Well, it's not starting on that path, but it is starting perpendicular to that path, so it still works for us. Which means that we could do this a number of ways. We could start following it, press Alt, and finish it. We could just select that surface, go to follow me, and finish it. Okay, so a number of ways that we can approach that. And another example over here, same thing. Alt, any number of ways to make that quick. Yes, question?
Setting up your components in the process of doing this, where would you recommend we select these things and make individual components or
So the question was, essentially, if I understand, how would you set up a component or group for use with follow me? Is that correct?
in this example, are you going to do it one time or multiple times? What's sort of the best practice for going through this model and adding features, adding details?
So in this example, would I do it one time, multiple times? And if you see I have a repeated window here, I would do that window one time, make it a component, copy the window over. Certainly, as you can see with any of these repeated elements. As is the rule with components, any repeated elements, you're going to make it a component and then copy it across. We are going to talk about the relationship with follow me and groups and components because how that works inside or outside a component, we certainly need to understand. Was there one other question over here?
Well, along the lines, because I just wanted to know where you got the additional shape in the first place.
Okay, so the question was where we got the additional shape in the first place. So let's talk about right now good practices for creating your paths and your shapes. Let me undo several, in fact. I'll undo back to here. And let's create this shape from scratch and then redo it. And we'll do the same for the window. So erase this out.
I got a quick question before you do that.
Oh, I did it already. Too fast.
Can you use follow me with component, or do you have to explode it?
You can use follow me with the component. The question was, can you use it with a component or do you have to explode it? You can. It has to be within the component, which we're going to show. Just not quite yet. Okay, so you're so patient. This shape that we had, so if I undo this real quick, kind of a complex shape, standing out here in free space, right? If we, let me erase it back again. If we were trying to draw that freehand the first time, okay, so red, blue, red, we're doing good. Okay, all of a sudden, it doesn't work. It's very difficult, in fact, to draw these complex shapes out here in free space. And it's just not worth the headache of doing because it's so much easier to do this. I recommend you do this every time. Just draw a larger than you need rectangle. You see? Then come on here, and now you're drawing on a surface, which makes it very easy to do what you need, especially with arcs. Arcs, for any of you who have tried them, can go all over the place if you're out here in free space. But by being on a surface, we eliminate that and make it much easier for us. Okay, so now that we've drawn that, erase this out and use follow me. So let's do that again over here. Same thing. Let's say we want to create the detailing around this window. In this case, and if you want to extend past, so I'll draw the rectangle first. Lost my, or I gained a surface, but that's okay. So I'm not closing this. So perhaps I drew it incorrectly. Let me try again. Back, lock it. Okay. Got the surface. And now I'll draw on that surface, making my life much easier. Select the back surface, follow me, there we go. That's one of those things, just do it 5 or 10 times. It's kind of, I don't know, it seems a little backwards sometimes, that you select the path, then select follow me, and then select the surface. Or even if it doesn't seem backwards, it's a sequence that sometimes you forget, but you always need to select path, tool, surface. And once you've done it just a couple times, it'll become second nature, no problem. But until you've done it a couple times, you're going to do the sequence all wrong. You're going to do surface, path, and then you get some crazy result. So that's what undo is for, right? That's why we love undo. Okay, now let's talk about, or were there any questions? Yes?
I'm just wondering, you're going to talk about if you have, say, 500 windows, would you do a component, and do one and then just place them?
So the question was, what if you have 500 windows, and how would you handle that? Would you make a component? And how'd you know that's what we're going to talk about? How'd you know? We're going to talk about components right now. So yes, let's say we wanted a bunch of windows. So I'm going to erase out these windows. We want to make a bunch of new windows up here. And we're going to use follow me. Couple ways you can do this. I'm not going to advocate one way or another because it doesn't really matter. You can make your window first, make it a component, or we can select this window as is. Okay, and let me go to X-ray because I want to make sure I have good selection. Make it a component. Cut an opening, yes, create that. Now before we go, well, let me just copy this. I'll copy it to my clipboard, paste it up here, and array it down, say, twice. Now, okay, so I said I didn't have a recommendation. Actually, I usually would recommend that you create your window and your follow me first before you go doing all this. But not really for any reason, I guess. I guess that's just how I would do it. But result, and there we go. The key thing to understand is that we were inside the component. So let's create another example over here to the side, just to show the example. So I'm going to select this, right-click, and make it a group. And then I'm going to come in and say, well, I want to put some detail around the top. So I create a box. I do my trim detail. And then I try to use follow me. Click on this. Nothing happens. Hold Alt. Nothing happens. And I can't select that top surface because it's part of the group. So what you need to understand is that whenever you are using follow me, your shape and your path need to be in the same context. And by context, I mean if you're working with a group and something that's outside of the group, that doesn't work. They have to be in the same context, in the same group, in the same component, that sort of thing. So I'm going to select this shape, go up to Edit, and I'm going to cut it so that it's copied to my clipboard and delete it as well. Double click so that I'm editing my group, and then I'm going to edit, paste in place. Now it's within the group. Now I can use follow me as I would expect to be able to do. Okay, so that's the rule, is you do have to be in the same context for follow me to work. The shape and the path have to be in the same context. Sometimes, let me just undo here. Sometimes there are reasons why you wouldn't want this to be joined together as actual geometry. So I have my group, I have my shape, and I'm going to create a new rectangle on top of the group just so that I can select that rectangle, go to follow me, follow it around, and now I'm going to select all this trim. I don't need my shape anymore, but select all this trim, make it a group, and now I've got the trim and the object as separate groups or separate components sometimes. Sometimes that's useful to have, but just keep in mind that you'll need to draw a new path for that to work. Any questions on how follow me works inside and outside of a group or component? Okay. Fantastic. Let's talk about how you can do lathed shapes. Lathe shapes being basically this, right? You get it's the same as before. You have a shape, you have a path. In this case, our path is a closed circle or some type of thing like this. It could be a polygon, as you'll see. It's very straightforward, really. Now that you understand the basics of follow me, select the path first, which is the circle. Follow me, and select the shape. What's cool about this is, again, remember there's a relationship between the placement of the path and the shape, and of course, how they work. So in this case, I've got a 6-sided polygon. I've got this shape here, but it's not centered on the polygon. So when I select this as my path and revolve this, it revolves around, not from the center. I mean, it's revolving from the center, but we get this donut shape. So you can do this manually, and in some cases where you want to show a cutaway of something, you can do sort of partial, but your results are not going to be ideal. So furthermore, it's kind of hard to sometimes always see where you meet and end. So this is one scenario where I'd really recommend that you always pick your path first. And as we've learned, I could just simply pick the edge or the surface, because the surface is also made up of its edges. I could pick either one, follow me, and it works. Okay, so just a couple of examples in any orientation. You just say, and for me, I've got a keyboard shortcut, so I say select this. Well, I used to. Just kidding. Select the shape, select the path. And I don't even remember what the last shape was for. So I don't know. Again, like we saw before, I really recommend that when you're doing lathed shapes, just draw a rectangle for yourself to start with. Make your life easier. If you're drawing something complex, so I'm just going to hover over this circle edge, find my center point, draw up, over, down, use a little inference locking, speed me up. And that's just going to be my reference surface that I can now come in and draw whatever shape I want on here, which I don't know what I want. It's going to turn out to be something terrible boring, but it's so much easier to do than if you were to try and draw that freehand. So just create yourself a little bit of a reference, make your life easier. Okay. I can undo that. And actually, this is a good point to talk about. When you're using Follow Me, Follow Me is one of these tools where you can add a ridiculous amount of detail into your model. And by ridiculous, I mean cool, but I also mean ridiculously unneeded amount of detail into your model. And here's what I mean. Let's explore this. If you haven't done a lot of SketchUp modeling, then you probably haven't worried yet about what we call poly count, the amount of polygons that are in your model, the amount of detail you are putting into your arcs and your circles. After you do a fair amount of modeling, you start to realize that this is an important thing, because the more of this ridiculous detail that you put into your model that you don't need, okay, there's detail you need, there's detail you don't need, it makes your model really heavy and slow down a lot faster than it needs to do. So here's what happens. I am going to close all this stuff that I don't need. But I do want to see entity info, so let's just open that up. Okay, this shape, by default, circles have 12 segments, and by default, I changed this to 16, but by default, I'm sorry, arcs have 12 segments, the circles have 24. Yeah, a couple of you are like, you're off your rocker. Might be. But I'm going to change this to 24. So let's create this example. I'm going to copy it. Over. All right, so we've got this, and there's our lovely, I don't know, pedestal? I don't know, thing. This time, I'm going to take this arc, and rather than being 12 segments, I'm going to turn it down, let's say, to 8 segments. Take the circle, and turn it down maybe to that 16 segments that we had before. Same thing, okay, let's make this follow me. Okay. there's not a lot of difference visually. Okay? If you really get in, you could say, okay, yeah, I can see the segments of this a little more than I can see them here. But if the closest you ever get to these objects is this in your scene, what's the difference? You don't know the difference. Nobody can see the difference. But if we look at the hidden geometry, you can see that this one is not near as complex as this one. If we select this, we've got over 1,300 entities, and this guy, we're down around 700. If this, let's say this was, we'll pull this up, and this is part of a lamppost, and we have all this detail. And this lamppost is copied 20 times down the street in your model. So instead of having this 1,300 plus detail that's now copied so many times, and your computer has to think about that and inference to that and worry about that, instead you've got this amount of detail. It just works better. Okay? And follow me is notorious because two things can happen. Unlike other tools where you have something where you're just, okay, if I do this and I create an arc on here, well, I've created a 12-sided arc, and depending on your need, that may be too much. But I've only pulled it across one segment. Follow me, you're revolving this around 24 segments, or you're pulling it along a path that's made up of 4 or 5 arcs, each one with 12 segments, and you are ridiculously multiplying the amount of geometry in your model. So follow me, that's why I say you can add a ridiculous amount of geometry really, really fast. And that's why you've got to be aware of the poly count, both in your shape and in your path. Any questions? Have I harped enough? Shall I just keep on moving on? That's enough. Okay. That is plenty enough. Sometimes I get up on a pedestal and like, stop modeling these crazy, ridiculous, and you see these models, and somebody's created these little bolts on, and then there's 100 bolts against the wall, and every bolt is made up of about 10,000 polygons, and you're like, why? Why?
That's why you don't get invited anymore.
It's true.
Maybe have to be.
Yeah, people are just like, you're so OCD. Okay. So, really, you all know most everything you should know about Follow Me now. Those are all the good tips about how to use it and best practices. There's a couple cases that we can talk about in the last few minutes about some scenarios that you might run into, how to resolve them, and some cases where Follow Me, you think it would work, but actually it doesn't. So we'll just dispel that right now, and so that you don't have those headaches. We'll just create a nice generic example here. Okay, I am going to create a half circle arc. Got 12 segments. I'm going to create another arc here. And to show you, I'm going to turn this one down to 4 segments. But again, make it a half circle. This is something that we see fairly commonly. You want to create a shape and use Follow Me. Like that. Okay, that's all well and good. But if you look down actually at the model, it doesn't resolve properly, okay? And if we look at this, that looks okay, but if we go into X-ray mode, we actually have geometry hanging out back here that's unneeded. Same thing over here. what's happening is that no matter how much detail you put into your arc, you don't have an arc that's meeting your wall at 90 degrees, okay? Your arc is always meeting your wall at some slight angle, and that's why we have this other example to show you that this is easy to see that it doesn't meet the wall at 90, it meets at an angle. But that's true no matter how much detail you put into your arc, whether it's a default 12-sided arc or if you turn it way up to a 99-sided arc, that's still true. So if you were in a scenario like this, something like this, and you wanted to resolve this, all you need to do is just go in and draw a little segment that is 90 degrees. Okay, let me zoom in a little farther. So there's 90. I'm going to reference that point, come over, draw this in as well. Now, because we've taken that extra little step, and I have to be careful. I didn't catch that first line like I needed to, so I'm going to pre-select them as I recommended that you do. Pre-select, shape, and now it dies in properly. And as you get more complex arcs and stuff, same procedure. It'll still work. One thing that can be a problem with this is you can run into scenarios, certainly, where, let's see if I can make this example work. If your shape is a pretty large shape or some strange shape, because of how it resolves, well, and we got lucky. If it was much larger, it wouldn't have resolved here. But if your shape is quite large and that little fix-it line that you put in there is quite small, you can't always resolve that, resolve the angles going on. So just something to keep in mind. But that's arcs and something about arcs that keep in mind. Now, another tip for using Follow Me. Let me create give me half a second to, I'll say 5 sides. And I'll make this one 7 sides. That should work. And I'm going to take this shape and copy it over and scale it. This looks like a ridiculous shape, but actually I was building this the other day. If this is a piece of wood and you put a drill right through the center and a bolt down and tighten it down, this is actually a hold down for your work table that I was trying to build out. Not exactly like this, but the question in this case is, and this is what I was doing, I wanted to have a beveled edge, or I wanted to show a beveled edge just because I am OCD when it comes to SketchUp and my modeling. And in this case, well, I guess over here would be a decent candidate to start it out, you know. But my bevel wasn't on the outside, it was on the inside. And sometimes you don't always have a great starting location for your shape. So here's the tip. I found this was a straight edge, so this was, in my case, the best place to start. So I touch on the edge so that I can draw perpendicular to it. Same thing down here. And so I've drawn my shape, but how do I get to it? Well, keep in mind that in SketchUp, if something is hidden, it's not gone. It's only hidden from your view. I can take this top surface, for example, hide it. For me, that's just keyboard shortcut H. And still be able to do this. Now for this would be easy because we've got the bottom shape still, so I could select the bottom shape, say follow me, and work along. As soon as I go up and unhide all, it still works great. However, if I wanted to, do this both sides, oops. I'm going to unhide. I'm going to select this, hide it. No, actually I can't do that. So in this case, I might even make a copy of it. But the point being that you can hide shapes and still have them be affected in your tool. So select it. That's fine. Select it again, or I can select the bottom surface, either way. Unhide it. Unhide my surface. And there we go. Yeah, question?
How did it know to take it away? I mean, how did it know that you didn't want to have that additional thing on the inside?
Question was, how did it know to take it away, to cut it away, that we didn't want?
You want to bevel it, not just add another surface.
When you look at how we created this, this shape was perpendicular exactly to the starting edge that we were using. And that's a good point in that I totally missed one of the basics of Follow Me. Didn't show a good example of this. Follow Me, as we've already seen, will add to, but it will also cut away. Okay, so I totally skipped over that. My bad. It will do either one, depending on if it's on the outside or on the inside of a shape. Okay, so depending on what you're doing, again, it's just the relationship between the shape and the path. If I draw a shape way out here, as we know, and use that path, it'll be outside of the box or inside. In this case, because we had something on the inside, this being on the inside of the shape, it knew to cut that triangle away entirely. If that makes sense.
Here's another question. If I wanted to do crown mold on the inside,
Yes.
is there any way to do it? Would it just cut away on the outside?
It'll cut away on the outside unless you make it a group. Copy your path. So the question was, what if I wanted to do crown molding on the inside? Would it cut it away? Yes, it would in this case. But as we saw, a good way to get around that is select your path. I'm going to just copy that to my clipboard. And I'm actually going to move this over. Take this object, group it, go back up, paste in place so that I've got a path. I'm going to hide this group, but now we'd have it on the inside, not cut away. So, yes.
Tyson, in woodworking, we're doing moldings around the edges of things all the time, but we want a miter joint to show up at the corners. And Follow Me doesn't show the actual plane. I need to make components out of the style and the rail as individual components after I've done Follow Me. And what I have to do to make that miter joint is, the only way I know how to do it is to put a plane in there and create a cut at that intersection. So then I can make the component separate.
The question had to do with, in woodworking, you have various, you do this trim detail all the time, and in corners and the miters, you say you're trying to get more information than it's giving you, essentially?
I need to make separate components out of those 4 pieces that are around the edge.
You want to see the line that separates physically the two parts. The picture frame. Exactly.
Right.
So I will run the follow me. Well,
You want this corner,
well, in that case, no, I put a frame around the outside, not on the inside. Yes, I want component. Yeah, now run your follow me. Now I want 4 pieces that 2 components.
right, you
4
want
pieces.
each of these as a separate piece of
Yeah, I
wood,
gotta
essentially.
show my students how to cut these pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. When you go to the shop, you don't want that entire piece.
Right. Can I address that right after the class, for those of you who are interested, because we're actually out of time. So let's do that. 2 last things just to know about Follow Me in general. One is that when you do a shape, I'm sorry, it's a bad example. This arc beforehand was joined as an arc. When you use Follow Me on it, it breaks it up into separate segments. That's just FYI, because actually that's kind of annoying sometimes. You do wish you could retain that as one whole segment, but that's the way it works. So, sorry, just FYI. Second thing, and again, we're out of time, so see how quick I can work here. Is a number of people would try to do something where let's essentially call it roller coaster, type of thing. You're trying to create, this really cool swerving, coming all over the place. So you can see where this one is straight, this one is start to curve around. What happens is that in this case it seems to work fine. I don't know if I've skewed this enough that it's going to work in our example, but what happens over here is you can't predict how it's going to follow a path that really starts to take on a lot of curves all over the place. I'm just throwing that out there just so that you know that you're aware of how that will work. Again, it's just how it works. It's how the tool was written and the way that's built up like that. But I'm out of time, and I do not want to take time away from Jim because I'm very excited for his presentation. So thank you very much.